and welcome to Games Past Their Prime. This is a show where I take a look at video games to determine if they are past their prime or not. For me to do so, though, there are a couple key categories which I look at. Story, presentation, and gameplay. Then there's a conclusion section where I wrap everything up in a nice little bow. You guys have read the title. You know what game we're playing. Let's take a look at Jak and Daxter. At the start of the game, you get a bit of a story dump with a bunch of cutscenes. Jak and Daxter went to the forbidden Misty Island against the word of the sage Samos. Once there, they see two figures ordering something called the Lurkers around to gather eco and precursor artifacts. The duo, not sure what they are seeing but know it's not good, prepare to leave but are discovered by a Lurker guard. Jak manages to kill it with an explosive device they found, but this ends up sending Daxter into a pool of dark eco. Daxter manages to come back out, but he is transformed into an Ottsel, which is a hybrid of an otter and a weasel. Once they return to Sandover Village, they seek help from Samos. He explains that only Gol Atrion, the Dark Sage, may be able to reverse the transformation on Daxter. He then goes on to explain that Gol lives far to the north, and the duo discover that the path they need to cross is the Deadly Fire Canyon. Samos' daughter, Kira, happens to be a skilled engineer and offers to let the duo use her hoverbike called a Zoomer, but before they can use it, the duo must collect enough power cells for it to work and protect it from the massive heat. After doing so and crossing the Fire Canyon, the duo make their way to Rock Village, the home of the Blue Sage. They find that the village has been attacked by a massive lurker known as Claw, and the Blue Sage has vanished. The path forward out of Rock Village has been blocked by Claw, who placed a large burning rock in the way. Thankfully, the Blue Sage built a device that would levitate the rock out of the way. However, obviously he is not around. Kira shows up and says that she can get it working, but to do so Jak and Daxter will need to collect more power cells to get it to work.
Oh shit, here we go again.
After collecting enough power cells, Kira moves the rock out of the way, and Jak and Daxter then go to confront Claw. Once doing so, the duo cross the mountain pass and make their way to an ancient volcano where the Red Sage lives. Once there, they discover that the Red Sage has also gone missing. At this point, it is revealed that the Blue, Red, and Yellow Sages have been abducted by Gol and his sister, Maya, who intend to harness their power to extract the Dark Ego within their possession and use it to remake the world. Kira tells the duo for them to make it to Gol and Maya's citadel that she will need to upgrade the Zoomer's shields again to make it through the volcano. Of course, she then tells Jak and Daxter to find more power cells.
You must construct additional pylons.
Once the duo collect enough power cells, they make their way through the lava tunnels to Gol and Maya's citadel. Once there, they turn on a teleporter, which Kira comes through, who reveals that Samos has now also been captured. With the four sages now under their control, the Atrion siblings begin restoring their excavators so that they can release the Dark Ego from silos nearby. After Jak and Daxter rescue the sages from captivity, they are sent to intercept the machine and engage it in battle. During the battle, the duo only managed to destroy its eco weapons. However, the sages realize the duo need help and combine their four different types of eco into one, creating light eco. Jak then uses the light eco, which allows him to finish off destroying the machine. With Gol and Maya unable to escape the cockpit, they are dropped into the silo filled with dark eco and are presumed dead. The group then focus on unlocking the fabled precursor door, which can only be opened with the energy of 100 power cells. You don't actually need to do this to beat the game, because after beating Gol and Maya it goes to the credits, but if you wish to, you can collect more power cells to get another ending to the game. Once the duo collects enough power cells and returns to the precursor door, it opens and reveals a large, mysterious object enveloped in a blinding light. And then it cuts to the credits again. So I went out of my way to collect additional power cells for a 30-second extra end scene that reveals nothing? What was the point? I know the object gets revealed in the second game because I have read up on that, but let's say we didn't get a second game. Then what? This legit feels like a slap in the face. It gives you nothing. It doesn't reveal anything. And in fact, it doesn't even give me the feeling to want to even play the second game. Honestly, the story is okay at best, but this ending, man, what were they thinking?
It's
Alright, so right away you'll notice the graphics look pretty good, which is to be expected since we are of course playing on the PS2. However, not only does the graphics look good, but there is a lot of color which I absolutely love, and it makes it look almost like a cartoon or comic book with how much color there actually is. It's all done so well in this way, and I just absolutely cannot tell you how much I love looking at how much color there is in this game. The setting of the world also comes out very well with the graphics and color. The world looks very unique to this game, and each area is unique to the world, but it all connects so well to each other. Because there isn't really any loading screens moving from one area to the next, it makes it very smooth and also helps to make these areas feel like they are one whole world, which is absolutely fantastic to see. Honestly, I have nothing really negative to say about the graphics at all. Everything looks unique to this world, and this includes the buildings, the enemies, the environment, etc. I think with that said though, we can move on to the music because I am running out of things to say about the graphics at this point.
nice.
So I am kind of a liar, and before I move on to talk about the music, I want to talk about the VA. So the main character Jack doesn't talk, but his sidekick Daxter does. And oh man, does he enjoy talking. Now thankfully he isn't really annoying. In fact, when he does talk, he does tend to say some pretty funny stuff, such as when you die. Now the downside of this is if you do die a lot, you will start to hear some of the same lines over and over again, and honestly the simple answer to that is, well, just don't die as much. The other characters around you also have VA, such as Samos, the Green Sage, and Kira, his engineering daughter, and frankly they are both just fine. They aren't bad, and they don't really sound cringy or have any weird awkward pauses in between their lines. So all in all, I give the VA here a good pass. It's pretty good, helps to enhance the story, and thankfully it doesn't get in the way of doing this like some other games I have played.
Are you sure about that?
Anyways, let's now talk about the music. I am a bit conflicted here to be honest, because the music isn't bad, but I don't exactly like it that much either. It does its job well enough though, so I think I need to put my bias aside here just a little bit and explain what I mean. So while the music by itself isn't spectacular, it does an extremely good job at enhancing the areas within the game. Every track is there solely to complement each area of the game and its graphics, and frankly it does its job in spades. I was really surprised by this because throughout the game I enjoyed the music because it has this great bounce to it, but when I just listened to the music by itself I realized that I liked it mostly due to the combination of the areas and graphics, but it also probably due to the fact that I really wasn't focusing that much on the music while I was playing. In any case, to show you sort of what I mean, I'll just play some tracks here, and I'm sure you'll kind of understand what I mean when I layer on the graphics as well. So Jak and Daxter is one of those games that I think isn't too hard to explain. It's a platforming collectathon game. There are three main things you're trying to collect throughout the game, and that is the precursor orbs, power cells, and scout flies. The scout flies, there are 7 of in each stage, and once you collect them, they will give you a power cell. Now how you go about collecting all these requires you to solve quote-unquote puzzles and platforming while also fighting off enemies. To better explain how you do that, we will jump into the controls section.
And now for something completely different.
Alright, so if I push this left stick here, you will see Jack will move around the screen. And the right stick, if I move that around, will control the camera. If I press X, Jack will jump in the air. If I press it again while he's in the air, he will do a double jump. If I press the square button, he will do sort of this charge attack here, as you see. And if I press that while in the air, he will do a ground pound attack. And it doesn't matter if I'm falling or if I actually am jumping first. If I just press square while in the air, he'll do that. Circle will do this sort of spin attack with Daxter. And if I do that in the air, it will also do that same attack. Now, one common thing you will find yourself doing is sort of the double jump spin. Sorry for that. And the reason why is because you kind of float in the air a little bit more, so you get a little bit more hang time. And on top of that, you can also move while doing it. So this will also help quite often to get over large gaps or areas you'll find yourself trying to get over. Now, triangle will allow me to go into this first-person view. Say, the main use for this is if I were to have that yellow eco, where I can shoot fireballs, I can then aim and shoot with it. By using that square button, that would allow me to shoot the eco. Sadly though, as you can see, up is down and down is up. There is no way to change that in the options. I don't know why, again, so many people think that's a good idea, but there you go. If I press L1 or R1, Jack will go down into a crouch stance. If I were to say press circle, it does nothing while crouched. Triangle does nothing while crouched. But if I press X, he'll do this kind of large leap into the air. I haven't found a use case for this because you can't really move while doing it. Like, you can do a little bit, but I feel like it's the same height as just doing a double jump. So I don't know why you do this. I feel like there's probably some type of use, but I never found one, so I never used it. If I were also crouched though and I press square, Jack will do this kind of uppercut. This is useful against flying enemies, but you don't come across those too often. There's also sometimes some puzzles where you need to do this, so it's a bit handy of a tool, but again, not as useful as, say, the double jump spin. That is probably your main go-to. I mean, even for attacking, I rarely use this because you can see it has a little bit of a time delay before you can move afterwards. So quite often I will be using the spin attack to attack, because that's just by far better. You get a lot more movement. You're not restricted by the square, or by the way he charges, I should say, because while you're doing it, you can't really move other directions. Now, if I were to press L2 or R2, as you can see, it'll just bring up kind of the stats screen, how many things I've collected in this stage, or things I've collected in total, as well as my health bar up there in the top left and eco meter in the bottom right. L3, R3 does nothing. Select button does nothing. The D-pad does nothing. If I press the start button though, it will bring you up into this screen. And this is sort of your tracking screen. It'll show you what you have collected on each level. And right now it's tracking my power cells. If I press X, it'll tell me how much I have of the little eggs there, or also known as the precursor orbs. How many of those I've collected in each stage. If I press triangle, it's the scout flies, same thing. So it's a very handy tool, actually. It's a very nice way to know how many of each things you've collected. I kind of like how they have this in the game, because it allows you to easily track everything you've collected, so you know which stages are fully complete and which ones aren't. If I press circle while on this screen, it'll bring me to the options menu, mostly used for saving and loading. There are some game options, graphics, and sound options, but things I pretty much never really dealt with at all. Now, there are also hoverbike controls I will be going over, but I have to get my way to a hoverbike section, just give me 1 second to do that. Alright, so I found my way to a hoverbike here, and there's a lot of similar controls. For example, if I move the left stick, you can see it will rotate the direction I'm looking at, and I don't actually really have a lot of control over the camera here. It's going to be mostly based on where the hoverbike is looking. Now, you may be asking yourself, how do you go? And it's pretty simple. You just hold down the X button and you move. That's as simple as that. You move with the left stick and you hold X to actually move forward or to accelerate. If you want to brake, you can hold square and that'll brake you faster than if you just let go of X. And then you also have this kind of hop with the R1 or L1 buttons. This can get you extra air if you're going over a hill than you normally would, which can be useful in some cases to do certain puzzles or to gain certain advantages over like enemies and stuff, but not something I use a lot of. Sometimes I'll use it when I'm hopping over certain things on say like the specific level, because most hoverbike sections are actually like race sections, or they're getting through a section in a linear path. This is pretty much the only open hoverbike level that I could find that I felt like was a good way to show off sort of what you can and can't do. But that's pretty much all the controls. There really isn't a whole lot more to it than that, to be honest. That hoverbikes are pretty simple. They're even easier than just the regular moving around controls. I mean, that's all I gotta say about that. So with that said, I believe I've covered pretty much the majority of all the controls that you really need to know. So with that said, let's just head back to the main script. Now, there is sadly not a whole lot more to talk about with the gameplay. I mean, you go from area to area collecting those 3 main objects, and that's pretty much it. The puzzles aren't all that hard really, and most levels, while aren't 100% linear, aren't exactly big either, or open for that matter. Though I think this is a good thing because you tend to be able to find where you are very easily without the use of a map, so having it somewhat linear is okay. The biggest issue with this game though is that it never really changes. You start by collecting those 3 objects in maps, and you stay collecting those 3 objects in maps. And the maps don't really get any bigger or smaller or change much here or there. Sure, you sometimes fight a boss, but it's typically not all that hard. Now, it wouldn't be fair if I didn't mention that there are some things that change though, but they are pretty minor. See, throughout the game you learn to control the different colors of Eco. Each one does something a bit different. So blue Eco allows you to move fast and also will power up precursor platforms and also attract items to Jack. Red Eco increases the attack power of Jack. Yellow Eco allows Jack to shoot fireballs at enemies, and the green Eco will just heal up Jack. Now, while these are pretty simple ideas, they are somewhat implemented in puzzles, but it's all very surface level stuff. It doesn't get very intricate at all. It's so simple and doesn't require a lot of thought at all. It's just really, really simple. Like, it's one of those things where you go into a puzzle, you do it, you find out you're missing a piece, and it's just one of those Ecos, and you go and grab those Ecos, and now you can do the puzzle. It doesn't take a lot of thought. It doesn't build on having to use multiple powers at once, because that doesn't seem to be something you can even do. So, while I like the idea of the Eco, I just wish it would have been implemented a little bit more. Really, this is the majority of the game. It's not exactly that long either. I beat the game in about 5 hours, and honestly I could probably beat it in 3 hours if I wasn't so darn tootin' on trying to collect all of the precursor orbs or trying to get all of the power cells. So while the game doesn't change much and it is sort of fun, it thankfully doesn't overstay its welcome at that 3 to 5 hour mark. I mean, at this point I feel like I'm starting to ramble again because I've run out of things to even say, and I think I just need to jump into my thoughts at the end here because I just have nothing else to talk about. I have nothing super positive to talk about or super negative to not talk about. I could talk about the bosses, but they were just so plain and basic that there's really nothing to talk about there. I mean, I'm kind of at a loss for words here. This is one of the few times where writing a script, I feel like I don't have enough to talk about because the game was so basic, so simple, that there just almost isn't enough content to just squeeze out of this game. I'm sure I could do it if I really wanted to, but that kind of defeats the point of this whole entire review process. Like, I want to talk about the good things and the bad things. I don't want to talk about every minute little detail about how things function. I know that's somewhat important in these reviews, but there's a point where, you know, most of that's going to come out in the control segment, and mind you, I'm recording this before the control segment, and I'm kind of going on a rant here that's completely off script, because games like this are very hard for me to review because I expect more out of them, and because I'm expecting more out of it, or I'm remembering that there should be more out of it, I feel like I should be able to write more about it. And I just wasn't able to. I wasn't able to find things that were interesting to talk about that also helped me to review the game. I don't want to just drone on and on and on talking about the small details, the small little things in the game. And there isn't enough of those to even be interesting anyways. Sure, there were bosses in the game. I think were 3 of them if I remember correctly. But they were just so basic, it almost felt like doing a puzzle. Like, that's the best way to put it, is it felt like doing a puzzle where you had to do very specific things to get the outcome you want. And I know that's all a boss really is, but when it's done in this kind of fashion, where it feels like a puzzle and doesn't feel like a challenging boss, that's a whole different thing. And that's kind of my biggest gripe with this game, is that it all feels one note. It's just what it is. It's a platformer that requires you to collect items to get to the end. That's all it is. It's so bizarre. I remember actually really liking this game in the past, and I don't even know why. It's so boring. You're just doing the same monotonous thing over and over again. I just don't even know what to say. I'm completely lost for words. It's just ridiculous. Anyways, I'm gonna stop rambling. Let's just move on to the verdict.
That's not good enough!
The verdict of Jak and Daxter is a game past its prime. This was sort of a hard decision for me. I didn't love the game, but I didn't really hate it either. I see what they were going for, and I think this is a really good starting point for what could be a better game in the future, which I'm sure I will play the other games at some point, but it just feels like this is just almost a tech demo. It feels like it was a test of what they could do rather than a fully complete game, and I think that's why I ended up deciding to label it past its prime. Anyways, I guess I'll just move on to my top 5 reasons why now.
This is not okay. This needs to stop now.
Number 1. The story is very basic. I guess it does its job enough to call to action the players, but the story almost feels like an afterthought. I could be wrong, of course, but to me it's just another case of the villains being bad because they messed with some dark eco and that made them evil? Like, I just think there needs to be more here personally, unless of course the gameplay is amazing and overshadows this. However, sadly in this case it does not. Number 2, the presentation as a whole was very well done, and even has some pretty good music to boot. This again though feels like where the majority of the focus went. It's very pretty, but if the gameplay loop isn't fun, it doesn't matter how good it looks. You can only put so much lipstick on a pig. Number 3. Speaking of the gameplay loop, this game is incredibly repetitive. Go to area, collect stuff, go back, talk to people, go to new area, collect more stuff again. This is the entire loop of the game. It never changes outside of a couple bosses, and maybe a vehicle section here or there, which by the way still involve collecting stuff. It just feels like a strong base, but something that needs to be built on more. There isn't enough content here. There just needs to be more. Number 4. The idea of the eco is great. Different colors to give you different abilities. I love this idea. However, it feels like it wasn't utilized to the best of its abilities, which really disappointed me. I wanted this to be more evolved than it was. As it stands, it felt very one-dimensional. Number 5. Finally, we come to the enjoyment factor of the game. Again, it wasn't bad, but it wasn't great. Honestly, if I wasn't playing it for the review about halfway through, I probably would have stopped. Once I saw that there was not going to be really any change to this gameplay loop, I just kinda got bored of it. However, with its strong base, I'm very interested to see what they do for Jak 2. In any case, I don't think this is a game you really need to come back to. It feels like busy work with an ending that didn't really know how to end. So with that, let's end the video.
Fuck you.
Alright guys, that's the end of the video. I hope you guys enjoyed watching it as much as I enjoyed making it. If you did enjoy watching it, please consider subscribing. I upload videos every Sunday. Stay tuned at the end of the video to get an audio hint at what my next video will be. I hope you all had a fantastic day, and thanks for watching.